You guys know me. I love me some JRPGs, and I've got a lot of questions from you guys over the years, months, days about what JRPG franchise should you get into? What are the best that are out there? Usually I'll give you guys top 25 lists where we go over different types of games, and they can be scattered in terms of playing maybe the second game or the third game or this game or that game. But in today's video, we're going to go over the top 10 JRPG franchises out there, counting down the games that are in the franchise, in addition to my favorite game in each franchise that you guys should check out, and what's the future for the franchise. So I think it's going to be a pretty cool and different type of top 10 countdown. Now remember, this is just my own personal top 10 best JRPG franchises, and it's my own list. Let me know what your favorites are. This is not an objectively best franchises or anything like that, and I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of surprise here and there overall, but I think it should be a great video to do. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump right into it here. In at number 10, the Legend of Heroes series. This is a franchise that's been going on since the 80s, 20 games or so in the franchise, but it's been going for a long time. The first game was in 1989 with the release of Dragon Slayer, the Legend of Heroes. Now, my favorite game in the series is the Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. Many of the titles in this franchise are really good, especially the ones that have been coming out recently, and I'm hoping for the future that they can actually bring over a lot of the older games that are stuck on the PSP or stuck on the older platforms, bring those over, put them in HD, let people play the beginning games so they can kind of understand and don't have to go through hoops and hurdles overall. But I'm really enjoying the little amount of time that I have to play extra games outside of SMT5. I'm really enjoying the Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak. I think it's fantastic, and I cannot wait to see what this series does next. I think that the Nintendo Switch 2, in addition to PlayStation 5, are going to be drivers for this series going forward. This is the best sales that they've ever had, and these two systems with PlayStation, PC also being added in there, but really with the Nintendo Switch and with PlayStation, these two systems are driving the popularity of the Legend of Heroes franchise, and I just want to see it keep on going up and up. Now, coming in at number 9 is the Tales of franchise. There's 18 or so games mainline plus spin-offs and other things as well. The first game was in 1995 with the release of Tales of Fantasia, and my favorite game in the franchise is Tales of Vesperia and Tales of Symphonia, but I also like Tales of Arise, Tales of Graces, and many other Tales games. They're all really good. A lot of them are good, at least. Not all of them are really good, but there's a lot of good ones. Now, when it comes to what we can see in the future for the Tales of franchise, I'm expecting a Nintendo Switch 2 port of Tales of Arise. We have the leak of Tales of Xillia HD, or Tales of Xillia More HD, or remastered, or something like that. It's a PS3 game, and we definitely need to see them bring over some of those older games like Tales of Graces and stuff like that over to newer systems. So there's still a lot that this franchise can do. I think that they have some stuff cooking for next year with the anniversary, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else the Tales franchise can really bring to the table, even though it's been around for nearly 30 years at this point. Now, next up at number 8 is the Mana series. I always say Mana. It's Mana. I'm pretty sure it is. I always say Mana in my videos though, but Mana. So 17 releases with some remakes, remasters, all that stuff included. The first game in the series was the Final Fantasy Adventure game in 1991, but that's a Secret of Mana game. They just wanted to name it that so we can sell more copies. And I don't know if it worked or not here in the West, but either way, Secret of Mana, which is the second game in the series, Seiken Densetsu 2 in Japan, that was like, oh, here we go. That was my favorite one, and still is my favorite one to this day. But the Collection of Mana, which includes the Final Fantasy Adventure, Secret of Mana, and Trials of Mana. If you want to talk about a singular release with all those games, that's like the best one ever. The emulation on there is really good too. You can play it anywhere that you want with the Nintendo Switch as well, so I really love Collection of Mana. Plus there's some other little goodies and bonuses in there. The Trials of Mana remake that came out a number of years ago, that's also really good. Takes the third game, Seiken Densetsu 3 or Trials of Mana, remakes that in Unreal Engine 4. I like it a lot. And for the future of the series, we got Visions of Mana coming out as of the time that I'm recording this video in August. So that's pretty good, all right? So Visions of Mana, there's a demo out there, and I think it's going to be a solid game. I don't think it's going to be like, oh my gosh, my favorite or anything like that, but I think it's going to be a solid game in the series, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it builds off of that. But I definitely feel that's a game that absolutely needs some Nintendo Switch 2 love, which I think it'll get once Nintendo officially announces the system and releases it. Then we'll probably get something there. But if you are enjoying this video, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch and RPG videos as soon as they drop. In at number 7, and that is the Chrono franchise, Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross. I guess you can say Radical Dreamers, not really much of a game, but I mean, it's there. But there's about 3 games in the series, and I say about because of Radical Dreamers. And obviously my favorite is Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger is my favorite game, I would say, of all time, and it's doing some serious heavy lifting here because honestly, like, I debated not even having this on the list because Chrono barely has any games, but Chrono Trigger is so good, and Chrono Cross is also really good, and the Radical Dreamers thing is there. So to me, it's still somewhat of a franchise, even though there's not that many games in there, and Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross are both incredibly good games, and Chrono Trigger, like I said, is literally pulling all the weights here. It's got the Rock Lee going on when it comes down to it to get it above some of these other franchises that I do have. But yeah, man, I love Chrono Trigger, obviously. And we did get a PC release of Chrono Trigger, and we got Chrono Cross, the Radical Dreamers edition, which is on everything. So the future is looking okay, but we really need to see Chrono Trigger on modern consoles. It's only on PC for that new release of the old game, which was based off of the Android version, which people didn't like, but they ended up fixing later down the line. We still need it on Nintendo platforms, new Nintendo platforms. We still need it on Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know what's going on here. They released it before, like on PS Vita or PS3. They've done it on PS1. They've done it on so many systems after the Super Nintendo release. Not so many systems, but they've done it a number of times. They did it on the Nintendo DS, and that's probably my favorite version. The Nintendo DS version is really, really good. DS and Super Nintendo are my favorite versions, although the PC version's also now good at this point too. So we need to see Chrono Trigger be released on modern platforms. Maybe they do HD 2D remake, maybe they do something else with it, I'm not really sure. And I'd love to see them make a new Chrono game that has the same, I would say, spirit and adventure of time travel and of dual text and triple text being the key focus, with a really cool protagonist and awesome characters around him. I don't need 500 characters like Chrono Cross has. Just give me a solid cast, give me some great time traveling mechanics, let me go all over in different time periods, and really just follow up on what made Chrono Trigger so goated back in 1995, 96 when I was playing this game. It was just awesome. So the Chrono franchise, probably a little bit controversial, but does make it to number 7 on my list. Now, next up at number 6 is Dragon Quest. We've got 11 mainline games. We've got another one coming out, and we've got a litany of spin-offs, re-releases, remakes. There's so many games in this series, and I like Dragon Quest. I think that it's very good. I've played so many of the games, pretty much all of the mainline games I've played or beat. And the first game in the series was Dragon Quest. Yeah, back in 1986. Good old NES. Famicom back in the day. My favorite game in the series is Dragon Quest VIII and Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition. And it's very important that I say that it's the Dragon Quest XI-S Echoes of an Elusive Age, because the original release with that MIDI soundtrack grinded my ears. Because some of you guys already know, not all of you guys, but some of you guys already know, man, I do not like Dragon Quest music that much. There's some great tunes here and there, but like the regular battle themes are not my favorite at all. Too much on the horns and the trumpets and all that. So for me, not having at least good quality, not having that orchestrated quality, and them using the MIDI was just like, man, it grinded my ears so much. So I was really happy when they redid that for the 11S version. So happy that I bought multiple copies when it comes to different platforms. I bought it on Switch, I bought it on PlayStation, I bought it on Xbox, and I played it, and it's great. It's fantastic. It's a really good game. So for the future, I just want to see Dragon Quest 12 come out and be awesome. That's really all we need to see. Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake, that's coming out this November 14th, if I'm not correct, and that is going to be awesome. So I'm looking forward to that. Dragon Quest 3 is looked at as one of of the best Dragon Quest games, especially in the old school era. So I'm looking forward to that. And then early next year, we get Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD 2D remakes. So we also get to play those. So it's looking good so far for Dragon Quest. We just have to see more of what's happening with Dragon Quest 12. Something tells me Nintendo Switch 2, I hate to keep on bringing it back up, is going to be involved in that when it comes down to it overall. Now let's get into number 5, halfway through the list here, guys. Let's do this. So Pokemon, it is here. I know we're going to start talking about Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Don't worry, we'll get into it. So there's like 30 plus main games if you're counting like both of them, plus the other games and the side games, maybe sometimes even 3 games in there, or sometimes 4 games based off there, like Pokemon Sun and Moon, Ultra Sun and Moon. So it's pretty crazy. This series has been going on since the late 90s here in the West. The first game, of course, was Pokemon Red and Blue, and that was my first game as well. And to be particular, Pokemon Red with my Charmander on the Game Boy back in the day. And my favorite game in the series is Pokemon Yellow, Pokemon Pearl, Pokemon Gold and Silver, and Pokemon Legends Arceus. I like all of them. I do love me some Pokemon Yellow. Diamond and Pearl is where I was most competitive playing. I used to play that all the time online, but people were just cheaters on there. Then also Pokemon Battle Revolution, people cheated on there as well. But I still played. It was a lot of fun when people weren't cheating. But even when people were cheating, it was still kind of fun. And if you look at it, Pokemon Legends Arceus is awesome. Oh my gosh, I got to talk about that game more in videos. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, let's get into that. We know about that game. It launched kind of busted, but it has one of the best gameplay loops. And I think that's the reason why that it just crossed 25 million units. It's not selling as fast as I think it could be selling if it actually had great performance and didn't have as many issues, but it's still selling because people do see that competitive play. And the Pokemon Company, Nintendo Game Freak, they've done a lot with the competitive play with the different brackets that you can use and all that. It's actually pretty fun if you want to get into playing competitively against other people. It's more, I would say, inviting and easier than ever to play. Whereas back in the day, it was a lot harder to EV train and all of that. So I do think that's a positive thing. They just got to shore up all the other stuff with it. Now, when it comes to the future, I'm really looking forward to Pokemon Legends ZA. I think that that game is going to be awesome. Like I stated, Pokemon Legends Arceus is one of my favorite Pokemon games of all time. It's one of my favorite games of all time. So with Pokemon Legends ZA and them really being tight-lipped as of the time that I'm recording this video, I think they want to show us something and not have the same backlash that we got last time. Let us know when it's ready to show, when we've got a release date, when you can actually show something that looks good, at least looks up to maybe what the Nintendo Switch can do, then I think that's when we're going to see that. And Generation 10, I do feel that we're going to see that Switch 2 hardware. It could even be Switch 1, and I think that they are going to make some adjustments to make sure that it doesn't have the same issues that Scarlet and Violet has. Once again, I think that, yes, Scarlet and Violet's selling really good, but I do feel that it can sell even better if they make sure that those issues aren't there at launch. Now, let's get into number 4, and that is Final Fantasy. On my top 10 JRPGs of all time list here, 20 plus Final Fantasy main games, countless spin-offs, all sorts of stuff, all that included. Plus, there's a lot of them, guys. I mean, when I say there's this many games in the series, whatever, you guys all know there's a lot. So it's pretty cool that it's been around for so long. 1987, Final Fantasy, the original, old school, NES, Famicom. Great game, revolutionary game for what it was back then. There wasn't a lot of games like Final Fantasy. Now, my favorite game in the series is Final Fantasy VI, Final Fantasy VII, and Final Fantasy IX. And the coolest thing about Final Fantasy games, most of them, especially the older ones, you can just play without having any knowledge of the previous game. You don't have to play Final Fantasy II to understand Final Fantasy IV or even 3. 3 was 6 here in the West, but when I say Final Fantasy 6, I mean 3 here in the West, but now we all call it 6. So you guys know what I'm talking about. And there's the Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection. You can just get all of them when it comes to 1 through 6 on there, but 6 is the shining star. And then you can play 7, then you can play 8 if you want to. Then you can play 9, or you can play whatever order you want overall. So for me, Final Fantasy has a special place in my heart. It always will have. Final Fantasy 7 was I would say monumental release. I'd never seen anything like it, and it was incredible, and I loved it so much. And I do like Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think it's good, but I still think I like the older Final Fantasies a lot more. Now, for the future of the franchise, I would love to see them return to turn-based combat. We saw what happened with Player Obscure Expedition 33. They showed a AAA turn-based RPG from a Western studio. A AAA turn-based RPG with those type of realistic-looking graphics and all that. We just don't see that. There's barely anything on the market like that in today's day. So to see a Western studio do their own take on the JRPG genre with that level of fidelity is pretty exciting. And I think that Final Fantasy already has like a spot there because they did so many really technically impressive turn-based RPGs. I don't think that they had to stop making those. So for the future, I'd love to see them go back, but whatever they decide to do, that's what they decide to do. Now, we're gonna get into the top 3 here, guys. Shin Megami Tensei, and I'm just gonna go ahead and throw Persona in there since Persona is a spin-off, but it's also not its own series. But let's just put them all together here, guys, and if you want, whatever. We can put Persona and Shin Megami Tensei separate, but I like both of them when it comes to overall. It's about the 3rd spot for me. There's 17 entries in SMT. There's obviously even more. If you add in Persona, there's more added onto that, 20 plus. The first game in the series was Digital Devil Story Megami Tensei in 1987. Man, that's a year that there was just some bangers out there. Final Fantasy, Shin Megami Tensei, let's go. So my favorite game in the series is Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Yes, I'm playing Vengeance. I'm 90 plus hours in. This game is awesome. I love it so much, guys. Go out there and get it. You don't need to play the other SMT games in order to play this one. It's really good. Absolutely, it's awesome. My other favorite games in the series, SMT4, SMT3 Nocturne, the HD remaster is good. SMT4 Final or SMT4 Apocalypse, as it's known here in the West. Those are all awesome. And for the future of the franchise for SMT, I would love to see them remaster SMT4 and SMT4 Apocalypse. Those need HD releases on modern consoles. They are stuck on the Nintendo 3DS that is discontinued and no longer has an eShop for you to buy them. So I do think that getting those on modern platforms would be good. Obviously, I want to see SMT6, but I want to see them take their time and do it right on Nintendo Switch 2, PS5, Xbox, PC, or maybe we'll even have the Xbox Nextbox at that point. They'll probably be smart delivery though, right? And PS5, will there be a PS6? There'll probably be a PS5 Pro at the bare minimum. So PS5 Pro when it comes down to it. But yeah, I'm guessing they're going to take some time before the next SMT game, considering the amount of time and effort that went into SMT5 Vengeance. They essentially made a whole new game with that Vengeance storyline. Now let's talk about Persona as well. Persona obviously spun off from SMT, but ended up becoming way bigger than SMT, which was interesting. I don't think they thought that back when they spun it off from there, but it was ingenious when you look at it overall. Now my favorite game in the series is Persona 5 Royal and Persona 4 Golden. And for the future of the Persona series, obviously we got Persona 6 coming out probably within the next year or so, or at least an announcement at the bare minimum. So I'd like to see them evolve the social links to not be so demanding and the gameplay flow to change things up just a little bit. I think that it works what they do, and I get that, but the whole day, night, and having to pick from there and the calendar stuff like that, I would say structured, boxed in is just a little bit too much to me. They can evolve it. They've been doing that for the past 20 years or so since Persona 3. I think they can definitely evolve that and make that better. You don't have to change it completely. You can still have your social links. You can still have your dating and all of that type of stuff. I would just like it to be a bit more fluid and have a bit more, I would say, freedom with how you do it. Very much like Fire Emblem 3 Houses, which gave you extra activity points to where you can do more than 1 or 2 things in a day and all of that. So I feel it would be good if they kind of just shifted and adjusted just a bit, but we'll see what happens there. Now getting into number 2 is Fire Emblem. You guys know we had to do this 23 games, spin-offs, side stories, all that included, plus there's a lot more. I might be off, who knows? But anyway, yeah, there's a lot of games. First game started in the series, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light, back in 1990. Now, my favorite game in the series is Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem 3 Houses, but I have a super big emotional attachment to Fire Emblem Awakening. Real quick story here, guys. When Fire Emblem Awakening came out, I was going through a really difficult and tough time in my life. My daughter had just been born. I was struggling as a new parent. I was struggling when it came to my channel and what I wanted to do with it. I was just struggling in so many aspects, and I was riddled with college debt as well, which wasn't fun. And Fire Emblem Awakening showed me so many different things. Yes, it's a game, it's not real, but there were so many parallels that I felt that I saw in there, and how the future, the kids from the future came back and did everything that they could and pushed through. Even though that their future was still messed up and everything, they still did their best to make sure that others can walk a peaceful path. So I felt, man, I need to keep on trying. No matter what happens with me, I need to keep trying and doing what I can do so the people around me can walk a peaceful path and a good path as well. And that really helped me overall. Sounds corny and all that, but man, it really helped me. And I think that Fire Emblem Awakening is a very special game because of that. Now, Fire Emblem Three Houses was just awesome. I love the game. There's no special emotional connection or anything. It was just really cool. So I love that game. I do love the gameplay of Fire Emblem Engage. I think that the UI and fonts and all that is really good, which I'm going to touch on in just a bit. Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn are awesome. The GBA games are really good too. So Fire Emblem has had a long history with good quality games. Now for the future, I would love to see them evolve and build upon the UI like I talked about with Fire Emblem Engage, the features and all that. That stuff was awesome. So I would like to see them combine that with the progression story flow of previous Fire Emblem games like Fire Emblem Awakening, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, maybe even a touch or two of Fire Emblem Three Houses. I'm not so keen on the forced calendar system, but if they want to add in some elements of that when it comes to the social stuff or like the side quests or like the mini games and all that, that's cool. They can do all that. I'd be completely down. But either way, I'm looking forward to it. We should also get information on Fire Emblem 4, the remake, or Genealogy of the Holy War. So that is still a thing from what I understand. So maybe we'll get an announcement for that later in the year with the release sometime in 2025. So next up, we've got number one on the list here. You guys already know Xeno series, Xenoblade Chronicles, and I'm just going to say the Xeno series because it does go beyond just Xenoblade, although they're not all directly connected story-wise, like directly connected with the characters and everything. They are connected in the overall greater scope and world view from Xenogears to Xenosaga and Xenoblade Chronicles. So that's the reason why I have them both on here. Now, there's 13 games overall if you include all the main games releases that date all the way back to the first game, which would be Xenogears in 1998. And once again, I want to make sure that I'm very clear with this, guys. It's not like they consider them, like Nintendo or Monolith Soft consider like Xenogears like directly there, but there's certain things in there. I'm trying to do this without spoiling the game. There are certain things in there that connect overall in terms of how the worlds were built and everything. That's very clear that they are connected in some way, shape, or form. Some games more than other. Once again, I'm trying to do this navigating without spoiling anything. Now, my favorite game in the series is Xenoblade Chronicles 3 plus Future Redeemed, but I love Xenogears. I love Xenosaga as a whole, and all of the Xenoblade Chronicles games are awesome. Torn of the Golden Country is one of the best DLCs that I've ever played, along with Future Redeemed. I love the story and everything, and I would say that the way that they wove the franchises together all into one with Xenoblade Chronicles 1 through 3, and even adding in some stuff from other Xeno series games, particularly on the PS2. I think that that is something that is very difficult to do, and to make it coherent over the course of decades is just incredible. It really is a work of art, and Takahashi and his team have been rewarded greatly for that. Xenoblade Chronicles is their best-selling games ever, and I think that whatever they're going to do next, I think it's going to be awesome. When it comes to the future Xeno games, there's two ways to go. So there's one way that they can go that's super spoilers that I'm not going to say, but if you know what I'm talking about, if you beat Future Redeemed, then you beat Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and if you beat the previous Xenoblade games, then you know exactly where Xenoblade 4 can go, and I want it to go in that direction. If you watch the lore videos and what happened at the end of Future Redeemed, I think that would be such a cool place to pick up and kind of just go from there and build a new Xeno whatever else. Or even if you want to call it Xenoblade Chronicles, that's fine. Build a new Xeno whatever. Now they can also go in a different direction when it comes down to it and just say, hey, there's a whole alternate dimension, whole alternate thing, and say, hey, we're gonna make something in the world of like Xenoblade Chronicles X. Which Xenoblade Chronicles X, which I barely even talked about, is also very good, but separate from the Xenoblade Chronicles, I would say, direct story tie-ins. Once again, I mean, you could potentially tie it in, but most people say it's a separate type of thing. So they have different areas that they can go into if they're going to continue the franchise in the future. And I just can't wait to see what's next for not only just Monolith Soft, but also what they do, because they did state, some people say, oh, well, Xenoblade 3, that's the last one, there's no more. It's like, no, they actually said they want to go back and do something. They don't want it to be the end, and it will not be the end. So I think we'll see something, but we'll probably see Monolith Soft's new IP or whatever they're doing next. We'll probably see that first before they do go back and do Xenoblade. But I think if they go back and do Xenoblade Chronicles or Xeno whatever, it's going to be a fresh start. It's going to be something to where you don't necessarily have to know everything about the previous games and all of that type of stuff. And it's going to be a fresh start with some loose ties back to it. So I think that's what they're going to do. And they're going to probably change up some of the gameplay experience and what you do. So I think it's going to be a much different style of game. But I'm down for whatever Monolith Soft is serving up. So those are my top 10 best JRPG franchises. I know it was a little bit kind of weird, but I felt that it was a fun video to make. It was more than just doing a countdown of top 25 and just talk about this game and this game and this game. It was actually going over the franchise and the history and what happened with them and what I want to see in the future and what you guys want to see in the future. So let me know about that in the comment section below, and let me know what other JRPG videos you want me to talk about right here on the channel. So thank you guys so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you are someone new, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, and hit that notification bell to get these videos as soon as they drop. Thank you for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.